Hi class, I wanted to go over your synthesis matrix tables and your annotated bibliographies with a sample synthesis table and what you actually use it for in terms of organizing your literature review. So first of all, I'm going to extend the date of your virtual attendance assignment, that synthesis matrix table, from Thursday to Sunday, March 30th, 2025, the same date that your annotated bibliography is due. So now that date is not changing. I want you to keep in mind now they're both due on Sunday. And that will give you extra time to work on thinking about your research that you read and how they those 5 articles relate to one another in terms of your overarching research question. All right, so let's take a look at a couple of things. You should, if you haven't already watched this video, this is a really important video for you to watch in terms of understanding how you fill out a synthesis table and what it's used for. So this is something that I really want everybody to watch. It's only 8 minutes. It's really useful, this particular video. So now, you have this table to fill out. This is your homework. This is your virtual attendance assignment that is now pushed back until Sunday, March 30th. So when you should have read by now all of your 5 research articles that you found on your question. And you would have summarized them. That was due on Sunday. If you haven't finished that yet, I still need you to get it in, even if you lose some points for being late. It is really important that you are writing a good summary. So now, you're going to take those articles and you're going to start to fill out, and you will have the articles, the authors down one side of your table. So here's your sources. I have space for 6 sources. You're going to put your authors down this particular side, and then as you read through each particular article, or as you've read through and you started summarizing, you're going to ask yourself what the major themes of the particular article are. Usually you can find those themes in the findings section, the discussion section, or the conclusion section of your article. So once you have your articles, again, your sources listed, you're going to read through and start adding in across the top all the various themes or concepts. What are the main findings of these articles? Okay? You're going to go through each article and you're going to start to fill in. So let's just say, for example, come back here. I've got a question about service animals. What effect do service animals have on people with autism spectrum disorder? I actually have them flip-flopped here, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. So as I read through, what I really discovered was that 3 major themes emerged. Lots of the articles addressed social skills and development and what I called pro-social behavior for people with autism. And I found that 3 of my articles really looked at this overarching theme. One of them looked at children's bonding with companion animals. Another article saw that the pets served as maybe like surrogate social, interaction sources, and that one of the articles saw that the service animals helped people with autism in terms of having them comfort other living creatures. Okay. And then I discovered that family dynamics and parental well-being was another theme that kept coming up, or it came up in two out of the 5 articles. Okay, so I filled that in. And then the third overarching category I discovered was the quality of human-animal relationships as being beneficial. And I saw this was actually something that 4 out of the 5 articles addressed. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to go through and you're going to, as you read your articles, you will begin to take down the overarching idea or findings or conclusions. And you're going to try to say, well, okay, if this article looked at family dynamics in terms of lower parental stress, greater benefit with lower income families, this one also looked at that, but also saw that it helped in other ways, but they're still pretty related. So this is what your matrix table does for you. It is a visual representation of the themes that are being examined in your articles. So what do you use this for? These themes then become the organizational categories of your paper. And let me show you what I mean by that. So if I were writing on this particular research question, and I found these 5 articles looked at these 3 themes, my paper would look like this. Okay, and we'll go over this more next week once we actually start writing the paper, but I want you to see how that matrix table works in terms of providing structure for your paper. And we'll go over these parts next week. So when you are organizing your paper, each one of those themes is going to become a section of your paper with a header. So social skills development and pro-social behavior. This was, let me get out of this here. This was one theme, all right? And I will address all the articles and discuss in my paper all the articles that talked about that particular theme. So then I had family dynamics and parental well-being, which if you remember, I had 2 of my articles that looked at that. So I'm going to summarize how Carlisle et al. Looked at this particular subtopic. I'm not going to look at all of the stuff that article, because that article looked at a lot of things. But in this section, I'm only going to talk about how Carlisle et al. Talked about family dynamics and parental well-being. And then obviously my third section of my paper is going to be quality of human-animal relationships, which was my third theme that emerged. So now I'm going to talk about 4 different articles as they look at this theme. So you can see I discussed Carlisle, which is different from Carlisle et al., by the way. So this is same researcher but doing 2 different studies. Dolian et al., Atherton et al., all of these articles discussed that topic. So I'm going to write about how they're alike and how they're not alike, how they're similar and how they're dissimilar. And then finally, I will conclude with where I think the research needs to go in the future. Okay, and that is when you're looking at your, let me go back to the matrix table. When you're looking at the this film, this is this other column over here, and you can add as many concepts as you want, but ultimately you want to try to combine your concepts into 3 or possibly 4 at the most. Okay, and when you notice if an article says this area still needs further study, mark that down in the category, this column over here, and you'll probably want to address that in the conclusion. All right, so I hope that helps. Again, this matrix table is going to provide the organization for your paper. Okay, these will become the sections of your paper. watch this video. It does a much better job than I do at explaining all of this. It's a great video. So the other thing I want to talk about is that annotated bibliography. You want to make sure that you don't forget about that. So you've done your source log. Your source log that you turned in Sunday would have had your summary and your relevant section. So as you go to format that into an annotated bibliography, you're going to use this sample as your guidance. So first thing is that it's similar to what you did for the literary analysis paper in that it's using double space Times New Roman, but remember this is APA format, so your citations need to be in APA format, okay? You want to make sure that you are properly formatting. This is a big part of what your grade is on, is these APA citations. You're going to open up, you'll have your annotated bibliography centered. All of this is double space Times New Roman. In terms of page number, you use only the page number itself, no last name. You'll open up with your research question. Then you'll proceed alphabetically with your citations. After you put your first citation, you're going to include your summary, which you would have written in that source log. And then finally, how is this particular source relevant to your research question? And you're going to go through and do all 5 sources. Again, remember, alphabetized APA format. It's pretty straightforward once you've done that source log. As long as you're following my guidelines in this sample and using APA formatting for your citations, you should be fine. All right, so if you have any questions, go ahead and email me.